Doherty, Drum, Randolph. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Some public announcements. First, we'd like to welcome Mr. Wendell Richardson to the commission, both the Planning and the Zoning Commission. We are pleased to have him and him giving of his time and talent for the parish. At this time, if you would please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. If there's any recommendation of this commission that you would wish to appeal to the council, appeal cards are to our right. If you wish to speak in front of the commission, we respectfully ask that you fill out a speaker's card so that we have a record of that. Each side will be given 10 minutes, both for and or in opposition of each case, with a 5-minute rebuttal. And if you would, after each case, if you wish to further discuss it, we would ask that you go outside of the building, as if you go into the lobby, it echoes back into the chamber. At this time, I would ask Mr. Randolph to lead us in an invocation and Mr. Richardson in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gracious Father, once again we come before you with bowed down heads and lifted hearts to say thank you for all the blessings you bestowed on our lives. You watched over and protected us all day. You allowed your grace and mercy to overwhelm us and to bring us safe thus far. And we thank you for this commission. We thank you for those that are represented here tonight, and we thank you for our government, Heavenly Father, and all these blessings. We ask that we make decisions that's in the best interest of all, and all these blessings we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Included in our package are the minutes of the February 3rd, 2015 meeting. Do I have any motion? Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed that the minutes in most of the cases do not show anybody speaking either in favor of or in opposition. I understand from the Secretary that what she's currently doing is, if the petitioner speaks, she doesn't show that. But I think in the future we ought to show that at least the petitioner or someone spoke in favor of it, because it shows, well, the way this looks, that we passed this with no input at all, and I think that's really not proper.
I think your point's well taken. We would ask for future minutes to please have the record reflect who spoke for and or against.
And taking that into consideration, I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews, a second by Mr. Randolph to approve. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I ask for a vote. Motion carries. Postponement of cases. Staff, do we have any cases that you would recommend postponement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as requested by the staff, ZC 15-01-009, a text change.
ZC 15-01-009, text change, an ordinance to amend the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code, Volume 1 Zoning, Article 2 Definitions, to add the definition of breezeway. Staff is recommending postponement. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment? Seeing none, I close it to the public. I bring it to the commission. Mr. Davis.
I'll make a motion to postpone.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Davis, a second by Mr. Matthews to postpone. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I ask for a vote. Motion carries.
On page 2, number 6, ZC 15-03-021, and Representative Mr. Palmerone is here to address the Zoning Commission.
Thank you. ZC 15-01-021, existing zoning, H3 Suburban District, proposed zoning, A4A Single Family Residential District. The parcel, 34.07 acres. The petitioner, JMB Development LLC. The owner, FMG/LTL LLC. The representative, Mr. Paul Marone. The parcel is located on the north and south sides of Dean Road, east of Robert Road, Ward 8, Districts 8 and 9. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioner. We received the staff comments about a week and a half ago or so. I had an opportunity to talk with my clients as well as to talk with Councilman Belisario and Councilman Kenyolette, who share a common border in and around this property. They've expressed some concerns. The staff expressed some concerns. And as a result of that, we would request that the matter be postponed this evening. It is not the intent of my clients to develop the property with 6 units per acre, which the A4A request would technically allow. That concern has been raised by some of the residents. That concern has been raised by the councilman. And so we need additional time to evaluate what it is that we want to do, which quite likely would lead to an amended request to you and certainly an amendment to our plan. And we'd like the time to do that, to meet with the councilman, with staff, and with the residents in the area so that we can present them with a plan that we intend to go forward with so that if and when we do come back to you, there'll be more detail and you'll have something before you that really reflects our intent with regards to how this property would be developed. So we would respectfully request that the matter be tabled this evening to be reset at your April meeting, where hopefully we will have some of these issues resolved and we'll be able to meet with the residents ahead of time and bring something back to you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak on behalf of the project? Please approach, state your name and address.
Hi, good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. My name's Alicia Miller. I'm a homeowner on Dean Road, the property in question here. I would just like to bring to your attention at this time, I can bring some other issues to your attention at the later date in April, but at this time, I do have some information about a rare species in this area.
Excuse me 1 minute. Are you speaking for or against the project?
Against.
All right. I'm asking at this point anyone who is speaking for the project.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, I can approach after then. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak for the project? Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak at this time at any position to the project?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the item before the commission right now, I think, is postponement.
You are correct.
There's a request for postponement.
You are
So
correct.
we should be speaking for or against postponement, not the merits of the case.
Yes. Mr. Marone spoke his argument for postponement. Would anyone like to speak for or against the argument of postponement in the public? Please approach the podium.
My name is Les Sibley. I'm opposed to this petition, and there are a number of us who have appeared here to discuss it. I don't know. From my point of view, this road that we're in discussion here, Robert Road, was designated some 20 years ago, 15 years ago, as a scenic highway and byway.
Okay, sir.
I myself put the post in the ground.
If I may, are you opposed to the
I'm
postponement?
opposed. That's who you asked for, is it not?
Correct. For postponement, not the project. For the fact that the
I know,
the-
but
the
I'm here
request
with
is-
these people, and we would like to discuss it tonight.
That is not currently in front of this commission. What's in front of this commission is
I'm
staff.
opposed to the postponement. Why is it
Okay.
not in front of us? I thought that's what we were discussing.
Okay, you have every right to oppose the postponement, and your reason for opposing the postponement, from what I understand, is to discuss it this evening?
Yeah, we have residents who are concerned here to do just that.
Right, and I believe the petitioner came in front of the commission and the public and stated the reason for postponement is so that they had time to meet with council and the public, which is a normal and customary thing that this commission supports. We believe in the public meeting process. We believe in the fact that council members, your council members, are engaged in the process, and that's what we are here to do, to ensure that the process flows appropriately. So for the record.
But not tonight.
That's correct. What's in front of the commission tonight is postponement.
Okay.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak specifically relative to postponement? And we do understand that the public has come out. We take that very seriously. We understand that. However, the process being the fact that a postponement affords the public the opportunity, and this commission has consistently stated to the developers, to our council members, and to the public in general, that prior to coming in front, it is a very good idea, if at all you deem there be any type of misinformation or challenge by the public, the residents, that we encourage a town hall meeting or a public meeting to voice those, so that when it comes in front of the commission to debate the merits of the case, we are prepared to do so. And we apologize for the fact that that was not done beforehand. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Matthews.
It seems like there's quite a few people here that really want to discuss the matter, and we like that. What we've done in the past on many occasions is have what we call a community meeting. Mr. Morone, do you have any comments on scheduling a community meeting?
Mr. Matthews, I would have no objection whatsoever to scheduling a community meeting, and would be happy to entertain any dates that this commission or members of the commission might have available.
Okay. The gentleman that spoke earlier, considering you, I guess, as the spokesman, would you all be interested in what we call a community meeting? Yes. Okay. Staff, do we have any dates or times that those are available?
Yes, Mr. It would be the 17th of March, which is a Tuesday at 6 p.m. here in the chamber.
Does that, Paul?
That would be acceptable. That'd be fine with me.
Okay. Sir? How's the group feel? Okay.
And what time was that?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
I'd ask that the commission set, and Mr. Chairman, if you would appoint 4 or 5 members, we can have up to 5, I believe, of the commission to appear, and then we'll make a motion for postponement. Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Typically, well, we also have, correct me if I'm wrong as parliamentarian, but sometimes we have meetings closer to, more convenient to the area. This particular parcel is in Slidell. If they can.
Well, we
if it might
generally
be-
have them here. I don't know that we've had them any other place.
Okay.
But
The other public
can't get a-
facility is the Towers Building.
Yeah, but we don't.
If it
don't know
is
if it has
open.
We won't know tonight if it's available.
Right. So given that, let's set the March 17th, 6 p.m. date. In the event, if you have a contact that will allow for more convenience to be in the Tower Building, that information will go to the appropriate contacts in order to facilitate.
Don't split us up.
I'm sorry?
Don't split us up. We're not contacted and we don't know where it's at.
Okay, then it
Just
will
let
be
us
here.
know it's gonna show up.
Then it will be here. You're welcome. Who from the commission would be willing to participate in this?
I would.
Mr. Matthews? Mr. Dougherty? Ms. Casbon, you have a question, or would you like to?
I was going to make a motion to postpone, but
Okay,
If you need me, I'll be there.
very good.
Leave it up to you.
Mr. Lauren? And I also will attend.
Okay, then
Mr.
that
Randolph.
being done, Motion to postpone.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews to postpone, a second by Mr. Dougherty. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a vote. Motion for postponement carries. Any other postponement, staff?
No, Mr. Chairman, no other
We will give the public a few minutes to exit the building.
That's why they want to know we can't pass you. That's what we end up doing anyway, is tabling it until they meet and they find out what they want, you know, so Paul knows that. Go ahead and meet with them and,
I'd respectfully ask if someone could close the back doors to the chamber. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 1, ZC 15-01-007, existing zoning A4 single-family residential district, proposed zoning A4 single-family residential district in manufactured housing overlay. The parcel 7.47 acres. The petitioner, Parish Council by motion, November 6, 2014. The parcel is located on the south side of Powell Drive, west of Grace Drive, Ward 9, District 14. Staff?
The 2025 Future Land Use Plan calls for the area to be developed with single-family residences, including manufactured homes. Staff has no objection to the request for manufactured housing overlay, as there are several mobile homes in the vicinity, and the request fits the existing land use of the area. Staff recommends the request for MHO designation be approved.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this? Or by chance is the parcel's owner here? Seeing there's no comment from the public, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Randolph.
Move to approve. Motion to approve.
A motion by Mr. Randolph, second by Mr. Willie. Mr. Davis.
I believe that Commissioner Bill and I postponed this at the last month's meeting. And Helen, did we ever get in contact with the individuals who own this property?
Yes, sir, we received the cards back, yes.
And all that's been accepted?
Well, one was not accepted, but because they didn't pick it up. But I consulted with Mr. Hand, and he said that we attempted to reach everyone, and that was sufficient.
Of all the people that have been reached, how many people have not been reached?
Well, only one person did not claim the certified letter.
So the owners have been notified.
At least
Yes,
notified.
all,
Thank
yes.
you.
Mr. Matthews?
We have been working, I think, in the past to try to encourage people to come before us when they have something. There's no rule for or against it, but what we've been trying to do in the past is say, if no one comes, we postpone it. And since no one has come and we know they've been notified, they either don't care or they just don't think we deserve their presence. And that offends me, and I think it ought to offend the whole commission. And I think we ought to not approve it, but I think we ought to postpone it.
So do you have a motion?
I move to postpone.
Mr. Matthews moves to postpone. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Davis. As precedent, a motion to postpone takes precedent over a motion to approve. Therefore, we will first vote on the motion to postpone. Made by Mr. Matthews and seconded by Mr. Davis. I ask for a vote on postponement.
Nah,
Oh,
too
excuse
late
me.
now.
No,
Nobody
no, no, no.
notices it.
I'm
It's
sorry.
fine. Nope, that's all right. I totally disagree with, if it was something in the process of rezoning, this is for a manufacturer overlay. It's not changing zoning at all. It's just being allowed, which the staff approves it. It's just, I'm not offended because I don't know the circumstances and I trust staff's comments. And it's just a manufacturer overlay, housing overlay. So I don't feel that we need to postpone it.
Mr. Matthews?
I think it is a change in zoning, obviously. If we're just going to blindly do whatever staff wants, there's no reason for us to be here. And we have been working hard in the past to try to make sure people come. And I think this is the only way we can do that, is by postponing rather than just approving it when no one's here.
Ms. Casabon? Further comment?
No comment.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to postpone. Please vote. The motion to postpone passes. ZC 15-03-018, existing zoning, A2 Suburban District, proposed zoning, HC1 Highway Commercial District, the parcel, .35 acres, the petitioner, Rose Vaughn, the owner, Rose Vaughn. The parcel is located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 22, west of Timberwood Court, east of Indian Trace Boulevard, being 1859 Louisiana Highway 22, Ward 1, District 4. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses. The staff is currently developed with a warehouse and a small office occupied by an insurance adjuster's business. The zoning change is being requested in order to bring the site into compliance with the existing use on the site. Considering that the site is surrounded by undeveloped land and residential uses, staff sees no compelling reason to recommend approval. And at this time, staff would like to recommend that the request be denied. And I know that your staff report says approval, but it should say denial. Sorry for the misprint here. It's a misprint. It should be denial.
So for the record, the staff report in its recommendation was a misprint. It shows as approved recommendation, however, staff is now saying it is to be recommended to deny. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? The owner or you? Yes, the owner can come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Unbeknownst to me, 8 or 9
if you
years
would
ago,
state your
my
name
name
and
is
address.
Rose Vaughn, and I'm the owner of Albert Vaughn and Associate President and CEO, and I reside in Madisonville, and also my business is located in Madisonville. Unbeknownst to me, I did not realize that 8 years ago, to accommodate all the subdivisions that have come in on Highway 22, a very lengthy period of time after my established business has been there since the 1980s, the rural zoning was changed to residential, and I was not aware of that. My commercial building and warehouse that I've owned has been there for a long time, since the 90s. and there's never been a problem. Before me owning that property, the Crafts, Mr. and Mr. Kraft, what they did, they ran a commercial building and office out of those same buildings. In 2004, I had a fire in my warehouse. The parish came in, we went through what needed to be done. They allowed me to build a new warehouse, requested that I pass all of the things that needed to be done to be able to come into compliance. And I put in a new commercial sewer system with chlorinator that was inspected by the parish and was passed off as everything was okay to operate my business there under everything that the parish required. Now, the earliest occupational license that I now have in my possession is dated 1999. So the parish has known for at least that long, but even more than that, because I only keep them for about 15 years, that there has been a commercial business there. My latest one was just issued for me to operate my business there for 2015. Never has there been a lapse in that time of me not operating my business there and not complying with anything that the parish has requested. One of the things that I ask is, I want to comply. I am very big on compliance, doing the business in which I do, which is working with insurance companies, making sure they do what is right for their insureds. So today I come to you and I ask that the zoning that I've not had because of the parish accommodating all the subdivisions around me that came in 15, 20 years after I have been there for that long, give me the zoning that I rightly should have to operate my business, which will always be an office, which will also be a warehouse. Now, is there times that I rent out my warehouse for space because it's so big? Yes, I do. But then it's always a warehouse. One of the things we keep on our property is some trucks that'll handle our generators, our equipment that we need to go to lost sites after like Hurricane Katrina to help the big insurance companies handle the claims and get them done efficiently. There's always a couple of cars there because for me and the secretaries. Never are we there late into the night. Never has there been a complaint about noise about my business. We have always been what we consider some of the best companies in this parish of St. Tammany. I ask for you today to please grant me some zoning that will bring me into compliance with everything that needs to be done. And when I received the zone staffing meeting and saw the confusion under staff comments and staff recommendations, that upset me terribly. Because one of the things is, I carry a very expensive insurance policy for errors and omission and liability. That's in case anything ever happens that I issue a detailed engineering report on. If something would change the outcome to you or any of your family on an insurance matter, my liability insurance covers that. So when I see that there is a misprint on a report that is going to determine how you all determine how I'm going to be taken care of, I, needless to say, was very, very upset because this needed to be exact. So I came in here thinking, after reading all this, that staff recommendation was correct. And now finding out for approval, because it says designated to be approved. Then to sit here and find out, to be told, oh, we made a typographical error. Well, which one is the typographical error? The staff comments or the staff recommendation? That is what I ask. So this needs to be cleared up. And I ask, as a small business owner, which there are many of us in St. Tammany, that you please give me zoning in which will reflect what I need to do in those buildings, which is to have my office. It's not a house. It doesn't have a kitchen. We have a microwave, a bathroom, and office space, and a warehouse. That's all it has ever been from the time that I have owned it. It was like that before I bought it. So I ask for you to please take consideration in helping me to get that decision made today. And I appreciate your time and for the efforts in which you do.
Thank you. And Ms. Vaughn, could you state your address for the record?
Home address is 42 Helen Drive, Madisonville, Louisiana, 70447.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment. Carl Cavaretta, 38 Helen Drive, Madisonville. her property has been in that use way before the rezoning of commercial property up and down Highway 22. Before the subdivision, Timberlane, was even built, that commercial use was there. It's been there since the 60s as a commercial use. So it seems hard to be able to say, no, you can't use it as a commercial use when she's had a commercial occupancy license going back to the 80s. You know, I mean, what other use can you have if it's been that? It's simply an office building and a warehouse. So it's hard to say it's a residential when there's no house on the property. It's been that way for longer than all the commercial buildings that are along 22. That's it.
Thank you. We would ask you also fill out a speaker's card.
Okay.
Thank you. Please approach the podium.
I'm Danny Delat. I filled out a speaker's card. I didn't know the number, but
Yes, we do
I'm
have that.
opposed to this. I have the utmost respect for Ms. Rose. She's my neighbor. And the property that she presently has, a .35 acres, was at one time part of my wife and I purchased the 2.67 acres adjacent to her and L-shaped around her. And I cleared the property. We spent a tremendous amount of money. I'm presently building a 10,000 square foot home on that. This has nothing to do with Timberlane subdivision or anything. I'm her next door neighbor. And I am opposed very much to it being zoned commercial. I'm not opposed to what Ms. Rose does there on her property. If she's running her business, it's from 9 to 5. There's no sign out on the highway or anything like that. I guess my concern is I didn't even know that she was going to be here tonight. I thought maybe she had sold the property, and the new owners were asking for it to be zoned commercial. I don't know what their future plans for the property is, but it would greatly devalue my property if somebody decided to erect a sign saying their business was there. It's only 50 foot wide. It's a very small piece. It was once, like I say, it was part of a 3-acre tract that belonged to the Crafts. Their house burned down. This was his workshop over there. And I guess they sectioned that off and sold it. And anyway, I'm just in opposition of it. It is a residential area. Her neighbor on the other side, Pert Guidry's also here tonight. He's opposed to it. And I didn't know that there was already a determination by the council to either approve it or not approve it. And then I heard what you guys said, and I think the correct thing is to not approve it to be zoned commercial. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in opposition of the zoning? Hearing none, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Richard.
Yes, Helen. Do we have to go something as intense as HC 1 or 2? I guess it's 1. Can we do the neighborhood commercial? I mean, if we're talking about just an office.
We could, but it's the warehouse component that would not be protected in this case. Of course, she could keep operating the business, and she can keep operating the business right now because it's grandfathered in. So as long as she stays in business, it's not a problem. You know, what she was trying to do is to bring both components into to meeting the requirements, which she has the office and she has the warehouse as well. Office warehouse is permitted under HC1.
I got you.
Mr. Lauren? No. Mr. Matthews?
Helen, was this piece of property ever zoned commercial?
No, it was zoned rural in the past, and under the rural zoning, there was some allocation for some industrial uses such as office warehouse.
Okay. So when it was built, it probably was conforming?
Yes.
Okay. Like Mr. Richard, I think HC2 is very intense. I'm looking at what is allowed. I'm sorry, HC1. I'm looking at HC1. I'm sorry, I misspoke. And everybody can make a typographical error. But the permitted uses are exceptionally intense for this area. What the Vaughns are doing is not, but I just am concerned that at some point in time, if they decide to sell or change what they want to do, it's very, very intense. And I think a different designation, a neighborhood commercial designation, would help them with their office, and they can continue to keep their warehouse as a legal non-conforming, being grandfathered in. They can continue to operate that forever. So I don't think we really ought to go quite that intense.
Not at this time. Ms. Casbon?
Yes, Helen, that's what my question was. Can they continue to use the warehouse and their business as it is right now?
Absolutely. You know, as she stated, she's always had an occupational license, and, you know, as long as she remains in business, you know, that's not a problem. The issue is that if one of the structure is destroyed by an act of God, then it would not allow her, at more than 50%, it would not allow her to rebuild, and that's the reason for the request this evening.
And this particular warehouse and business has been there since the 80s, was that correct?
I'm sure she could confirm better than me. If I'm not mistaken, she said maybe 15 years.
Before we had the subdivisions around it?
Absolutely, yes.
So this,
yes.
Everybody knew that, and that this was there. And how big of a structure could be replaced on that at point, 35 acres? How large a structure could be replaced?
Well, she would have to either request variances or meet the setback requirements.
just wanna
So she
know
would
in
be,
the
it would be
event that-
very restrictive considering the small size of the property. She would probably be able to build something similar to what she has right now.
So it couldn't be any larger?
No, Billy.
And in this case, that if we're looking for, the size of the building, that wouldn't be any larger or any intrusive than what is there now?
No,
And the
definitely
people-
not.
And she was there before.
I mean, I'd be happy to show you the aerial. It shows that it's very,
It's not really a problem, but I understand about the zoning being intense, but the size of the acreage if in the event that something should happen, or even if she sells it, how large a building any larger than what's there now could be there, even to the point of another business and stuff. That I just have a problem that this business has been there before the subdivisions and before everything, and she's trying to bring it into compliance. And under the assumption that it was a highway, commercial, it was on there, and then we allowed it. So I don't have a problem with the request to rezone.
Mr. Davis?
Yeah, Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, sir?
So right now, you're operating this office and this warehouse?
Yes, and I rent out part of my warehouse space.
Okay, so I don't understand why we're rezoning it then. Why are you requesting Highway Commercial 1?
Well, I was requesting it thinking down the line. My son's going to take over the business from me and sometime in the future, and he will be buying all that property from me. And I want to make sure that I take care of all of this so there'll be no issues for him. Because right now he works for me, and that is my plan, that someday I can retire in about 3 or 4 years, and he'll be able to step right in and there'll be no issues.
Well, you can still operate it as is, and that's the question I'm having now. I have to agree with the planning department. I just don't see a need to make this Highway Commercial 1 and bring in anything else into the picture. Especially if this was rural in the first place. I understand it had commercial uses. It still has commercial uses. Nothing changes.
What about the occupational permit? Would that transfer if he had it? That was one of my questions. Would he?
As long as they continue to operate it, it's what they have.
That's correct.
But, I mean, would it under somebody else's
The son
name?
can come in and take it over. Or they could sell it and they could continue to operate it.
And if my
Under
son would
another
pass
name?
away tomorrow, and then I choose to sell it, am I still going to have an issue?
Yes. No, you're not going to have an issue. You could
Okay.
sell it to anybody and they could continue to operate
Okay, that was
what
my
is there.
question.
Yeah, as A2.
Excuse me, the only problem she would have in case somebody wanted to get a loan, then they would have a problem in that process. Is it not correct
Or if
zoning?
it burns down. That's when
I
Helen
agree.
told me that. She said, Rose, if your building burns down tomorrow, you cannot rebuild that warehouse. And that's a key thing to me with the kind of equipment in which that we have to keep.
No, I understand that, but that's not, the point is a zoning issue. And the zoning issue is this: if that piece of property came up for another rezoning, would we make it Highway Commercial 1? That's one thing we have to ask ourselves then. So I make a motion to deny.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Davis to deny, a second by Mr. Matthews. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, at this
Yes.
point, could she entertain any other lower zoning?
I am willing to
Certainly.
entertain what you will give me to keep me in compliance where there will be no issues anywhere down the line.
Staff, what would you recommend?
Well, there's the NC, you have some NC zonings, which not,
But it won't allow in
Which is-
case the warehouse burns down.
not necessarily gonna allow her to make the warehouse legal, but it's not gonna stop her from having it would still be zoned commercial. It would allow her to operate the office and keep operating the warehouse, and the property would be zoned commercial.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, Helen, is NC4 too stringent for this need?
Well, I guess that this is what I would like to bring up is, under the NC5,
Okay.
it allows a building of a maximum of 12,500 square feet, and it says with no more than 20% of additional upstairs mezzanine space for storage,
But that allows the restaurants with a lounge.
which does not completely resolve the issue. But however, if the building would be destroyed by an act of God, then it would be an option.
Tell the NC5 allows a restaurant with a lounge, i.e. a bar, dry cleaning, food
As
store.
well as
refric-
everything else that is listed
Yeah,
under the
but-
NC 1,
but-
2, and 3.
But it's pretty intense. How big is your office building?
The office building, 1,200 square feet.
Okay, on the NC4, the office building would fit. And you wouldn't have anything quite as intense as a restaurant and a bar, or call it a lounge, but it's a bar. I would recommend the NC4 if we wanted to give an NC rather than the HC.
But if the warehouse burned down, could it be rebuilt?
No.
No, but you could still come back to us and ask us at that time, if it burned down, if we would rezone it to allow that. I'm not saying we'd be in favor of it, but you could. But at least you'd have the office there. The office would be in compliance.
There's HC1 4/10 of a mile down the road, and C2 half a mile.
It's a little further than that, I think, but
See that? I'm
It's
going to
not-
recognize
it's not
Mr.
gonna-
Lauren. Mr. Lauren?
Ms. Vaughn, you mentioned you also stored equipment on the
Yes.
site. If we were to downgrade the zoning, would she be allowed to store the equipment?
Everything that she's doing right now is permitted. Outdoor storage yard is not permitted.
What I'm saying is if we changed her request from HC1 to NC5, or whatever it was that Bill was recommending, could she store the equipment there then?
Right now, she can store the equipment. She's always been storing equipment. The NC zoning does not allow for outdoor storage, nor the HC1.
So if we changed it to NC zoning, she would not be able to store this?
She can continue the storage right now. It's allowed. She's been doing it for many years.
So it's kind of grandfathered is what we're
That's
saying.
correct,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So I'll recognize you. Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. I think I made a motion to deny. I'd like to go ahead and, I guess, take that back. But Ms. Vaughn, would you like to make a change from Highway Commercial 1 to NC4?
Again, the only concern is if something, if it was to burn down, if she couldn't.
I don't think this commission is going to grant Highway Commercial 1. There's just no way. There's just no way. Personally.
All right.
Well, excuse me, sir.
excuse me.
You'll be recognized.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so the NC4,
The
that's
NC4
still, that
allow-
allows me to keep doing what I'm doing, correct?
Actually, you're allowed to do that now in A2 because you're grandfathered in, like I say. But when you come back and start saying things like, well, if the warehouse burns down, well, of course, if the warehouse burns down, you cannot replace it. I agree with that. So we're trying to get some sort of an option for you to at least, you can keep the office, obviously, in NC4. The warehouse, it's going to be kind of close. At that time, if that happens, you see, there's too many ifs and variable in this. This is a zoning case. The first thing is, I don't think this commission would want to grant Highway Commercial 1 in that area, personally. That's just what I feel.
In summary,
Except for
Ms.
Ms.
Vaughn,
Casabon.
where we are right now, the commission, and we have not gone to a vote, the commission seems its sentiments are not to grant highway commercial because of its intensity. The commission understands your circumstances, and based on counsel, both legal counsel and staff, you can continue to operate exactly how you are today, in essence, as Mr. Lauren had stated, in essence, grandfathered. However, if you get a higher designation of zoning, not highway commercial, it may afford you some other opportunities that your current A2 zoning would not, and it has to do with financing.
Yes,
Okay.
I understand.
So it sounds like Commissioner Davis is giving you that option to make the proposal, because right now the only motion that is even considered is one of denial.
All right, well, in lieu with that, and all the time that you have spent speaking with me, if you will okay the NC4, I will take that and I will roll the dice and say that my building will not burn down anytime in the near future.
I'll make a motion to approve the NC4.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Davis, a second by Mr. Matthews. Mr. Delat, you've been patient. Please come to the podium.
And I'm not aware of what all NC4 includes, but I do know that the property has been for sale for some time, and I believe this is her real estate agent right here. So that's my concern, and that's what I'm here for. I didn't even know that Rose still owned the property. She's renting it to somebody right now. And that's, I don't know if the sale is conditional on it being zoned to, HC1, which I looked up and I could see that all what it included, and that's my concerns, the future of the property. I'm not concerned at all how Rose is using the property right now. Just so you know, my fence that I erected after I cleared the property and developed it is 1 inch away from her carport for her office. The other side, where the warehouse, the length of sheds is right on the property line. So it is true, it's a very narrow piece of property. I don't see how anything could be rebuilt there if something were to happen to it. But I believe that's the real estate, is this your real estate agent?
He's my neighbor who just happens to be a
Okay,
real estate
gotcha.
agent.
Well, he's the real estate agent. I saw his name on the thing. So I guess I didn't know that you still own the property. I thought that it was sold. I did not see you here tonight. And my concerns are that I heard the commission say that it's not an area that would be, for HC1. I don't know what the NC, I don't know what that includes. But I don't know why it needs to change at all. Because if she can operate her business just like she's always been, and if she can rent it out to the people that are going to run her business or whatever, I don't understand why anything needs to change. And I'd be concerned about in the future, if it does get changed, then the people sell it down the road and what are their,
I can
use of the
address your
property.
question on what type of things there. NC4 would allow what is approved on NC4, NC3, NC2, and NC1. All of those are office-type things. NC1 is law offices, real estate, insurance offices, which are perfect for there. 2 are florist, delicatessen, drugstore, hobby shop, ice cream store, that kind of thing. A restaurant without a lounge. NC3 is bed and breakfast or an inn. And NC4 are dance studios, educational centers, clubs and lodges, daycare centers, nursery schools. But everything in 4, 3, 2, and 1 would be allowed. And you just mentioned that the warehouse is right up against the property line. If it
That's
were
the other property line on the other side.
no, I understand that. But then the concern is if it burns, to rebuild it, she'd have to come into contact with the setbacks. And she
Right.
probably couldn't put the warehouse back,
Rose
no
just
matter
discussed
what
that
we
with
zoned
me.
it,
Nothing
because of the
could be built there
setbacks.
Because if you come in on
Yeah.
10 feet on either side, nothing could be rebuilt there. So
Yeah.
the present use, the way it's being used is, I'm not opposed to and never was opposed to. Like I say, I didn't know that, I thought the property was sold.
So the
I
concern
know
about
that
the
I've seen those
fire
here at the center.
burn the place down, and even if we zoned it HC1, you would run into a setback problem and probably couldn't rebuild it anyway.
So as Mr. Matthews has done, he's given you the general summaries of an NC4 zoning.
And I will accept the NC4.
Okay, and you are the petitioner.
Yes, I am the petitioner, and I will accept that if that's what you as a council will okay.
Questions to be called? We have a motion to rezone NC4 made by Mr. Davis and seconded by Mr. Matthews. Is there any further
I didn't know you'd see
questions?
you here tonight.
Seeing none, I ask for a vote.
No, I said I didn't know I'd see you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I
NC4.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item number 4, ZC 15-03-019, text change. An ordinance to amend St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code by creating Section 6.09, Entertainment Overlay. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, I will ask the council to present this case.
This matter comes before you in connection with an ordinance that was adopted by the parish council regarding places of business that have served high alcohol content which abut residential neighborhoods. And in that ordinance, the requirement would be, in order for someone to be able to put that type of facility next to a residentially zoned property, they would have to get the permission of the abutting property owners or the homeowners association, if it was a subdivision and they were governed by a homeowners association. A part of the ordinance says that the other alternative to doing that is to come before basically this commission and hold a public meeting and get input, just like we do on any other overlay, like the manufactured overlay, agricultural overlay, and have all the parties present and hear all concerns about whether this commission should grant an entertainment overlay, which would then permit, and it lists the items in there, a bar, a restaurant with lounge, any other facility requiring the sale of high alcohol content. So it's a way of protecting the residential neighborhood that exists, particularly those subdivisions, that may abut a highway that could be zoned commercial, which would permit some of these establishments. This has gone and been presented, I believe, to the Restaurant Association and some other associations for feedback by Councilman Gould, who sponsored this. And this was an alternative to having a public hearing instead of going to the property owners, to make sure that everybody in the neighborhood had an opportunity to come before this commission. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Carlo Hernandez. You know, I saw the ordinance which was spoken by legal counsel, and that ordinance is much better than what's being proposed here on, for that. Let me, if, just taking, looking at 6.0903, site and structure provisions, reading that sentence, it says when property is located in or adjacent to residentially zoned neighborhoods and properties, the site and structure provisions of the underlying zoning district apply. Okay, well, it suggests here, when it says zone in residential, that I guess it could be grandfathered in as being a residentially zoned property, but and then it says, or near residentially zoned, but yet it doesn't speak to what happens with regard to, it says the underlying is what? Underlying is NC 5 or HC 3, or, I mean, it needs to be HC 3 to be a high alcoholic content. So I'm curious as to why we're leaving it kind of like open, that it could be like almost virtually anything else on here, and almost inviting someone to say, okay, we'll designate this, you know, this type of overlay on it, and then you're going to have to come back and rezone it in order to meet with, you know, with the requirements, which to me, I don't know why you would want to have that kind of overlay. I mean, it would be a rather curious kind of overlay on that. The next one, the next 904 permit application, any request for an entertainment overlay shall be processed in accordance with the same permit process as any other permitting process, with the exception that the request will be reviewed for compliance with the standards and criteria of this section by the Department of Planning. Okay, well, does that mean that it doesn't then come before you guys? It's going to be reviewed by the Department of Planning as opposed to coming before, you know, this commission here? I mean, that's confusing to me. I would interpret that to say, the staff could make that determination, and the staff could make a recommendation, but then, of course, if it goes through some kind of zoning change, then they would have to go through the normal process that they would have to. So I think, number one, this thing is a little confusing, and the ordinance that I saw, as I said before, was much, much better in terms of the description and what was trying to cause to happen than I think the wording that's in here. So I would hope that you would not move on this and maybe delay it for at least a month and come up with some better language, and I think it's in here. I think the ordinance, again, is much better written. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, I close it to the public. I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Lauren.
Thank you, David. I'm not looking for us to have any more work to do. I think we get plenty sent our way. But I like the idea of it coming in a public meeting as opposed to a meeting between an owner and an adjacent landowner or a homeowners association. That kind of leaves the public out of it. And what do you do then if you have a piece of property where there's two different homeowners associations, one on either side, and one's for it and one's against it? What I'm saying is, I think the idea of bringing it before a public forum has a lot of merit to it. But like Carlos, I think the language needs to be cleaned up a little bit where it says that, rather than to the Department of Planning, as I'm reading it. You know, if it's going to be brought here before this group, let's say that.
Mr. Hand, you're clear on that?
I understand what Pug's saying, and if you read this, if it just requires an alcohol permit and it complies with the criteria and standards that are set by the Department of Planning, then a permit can be issued, but the overlay itself would have to come if the owners, and I hear what you've said, you know, there are sections within the original ordinance that say this is an alternative. If you had that circumstance and the owner of the property who wanted to get the overlay says, I don't want to deal with the owners privately, or if the owner says no, that I don't want to agree to let a bar and restaurant go next to my property, then the alternative to the property owner who's trying to get the overlay is to come before this commission. just like they do with a mobile home overlay or an agricultural overlay, to say, I would like to get the overlay, and these are the reasons why I want the overlay. So that portion, it could potentially come, but again, if the owners agree and the property that needs the overlay, and the adjoining property owners or subdivision homeowners association agrees to it, then it doesn't need to come before y'all. Now, I hear what you're saying, that you want to see it come before this commission.
Mr. Matthews.
Bug, I agree completely with what you're saying. This doesn't, the wording of this doesn't tell me that it's coming before this commission. The wording tells me, in listening to council, that if the owner of the property wants to put some type of entertainment facility there, he only has to talk to the two owners on either side, and if they agree, nobody else has any input to that. If there's a 50-foot strip of land on either side and the owners both agree, the guy 100 feet down has no say. I don't think that that's where we want to go with something like an entertainment venue. And I'm not really sure exactly what the permit application language says that's really any different than a regular permit application to change zoning. It goes before the regular permitting process, and then it will be reviewed for compliance with the standards and criteria of the planning department, which is what they do in every case, and make a recommendation to us. So not really sure exactly how that changes anything. I have a couple of questions with the permitted uses. What exactly is an entertainment venue? I have a lot of ideas what I think an entertainment venue is, but I'm not really sure what the parish thinks it is. There's no definition for that. If we're going to do this at all, I think we need to, have a definition of entertainment venue. Bars, restaurants, lounges, we have definitions for those. And I think we really need to do that. Would there be any zoning classifications that this overlay could not go on? A4, could we put a entertainment venue in an A4 classification? Doesn't really say that. I don't think, I haven't seen it. I think, and I find myself agreeing with Carla way too often here lately. But I think this needs to be fleshed out a great deal more than it currently is. And I wouldn't be in favor of passing this in this condition without some more work.
Mr. Davis.
I'm going to have to also agree with that. I mean, since we already have existing permits, codes, and processes that we allow bars and entertainment areas and stuff like that, initially after I read this and didn't understand some of the verbiage, I said, what's the actual need for this? That's the first thing I asked myself. Second is, the verbiage is terrible on this. A high alcoholic content, what does that mean? Bacardi 151, Everclear? I mean, what does that mean? What does high alcoholic content mean?
It's greater than 6% volume. It's already
That's what it
defined in the
means?
code.
That's what it means?
It's already
Okay.
defined
Well,
in our code.
it's not in here, is what I'm saying. It's not clearly specified for that, and that's, I just didn't understand that, but, okay, thanks.
Mr. Randolph.
Motion to postpone.
Second.
We have a motion.
Everybody second.
We have a motion by Mr. Randolph and a second by Mr. Davis to postpone. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a vote. Motion carries. ZC 15-03-020, existing zoning NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District. Proposed zoning A5 two-family residential district. Parcel 35,800 square feet. The petitioner, Jack J. Menham. The owner, Elegant Home Builders Incorporated. The parcel is located on the north side of Louisiana Highway 36, west of St. Landry Street, being Lot 6, Block 9, Garland's, Covington, and Claiborne Addition, Ward 3, District 2. Staff.
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with commercial uses. Staff does not object to the requested zoning change as there are residences to the east and west of the property and multifamily residential nearby. Staff recommends the request A5 designation be approved.
Yes, sir. Please
Yes,
state
sir.
your name.
My name is Jack Menheim.
Menheim, thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
apologize.
I'm the petitioner representing the owner, Elegant Home Builders Incorporated, requesting the zoning change from NC4 to A5. The request is being made to allow the owner to eventually build either a single-family residence or one or more duplexes on this property. As the staff report identifies, that the uses in that proximate area range from retail center, mini storage, apartments, convenience stores, along with single-family residential. So the proposed use is entirely compatible with the surrounding area. The request provides a less intense use in its present zoning of NC4, so we would respectfully request approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menheim, and we do have a speaker card on you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this case? Is there anyone who cares to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Ms. Casbon.
Yes, this is, fits into the area. I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
We have a motion by Ms. Casbon, a second by Mr. Willie. Mr. Matthews.
Looked at this area, and it is completely surrounded by single-family homes. I know this is zoned NC4, but this square, bounded by St. Landry and Opelousas Streets, is all single-family homes. I don't know where the multifamily is. I didn't see any multifamily homes nearby. I'm not sure exactly what nearby means. There are 12 single-family homes in this square right now. Putting a two-family homes in here does not, I think, fit in with the rest of the character of this neighborhood, and I'd be opposed to it.
Any further comments or discussion by the commission? Seeing none, we have a motion by Ms. Casbon and a second by Mr. Willie to approve. Please vote. Motion carries. Item number 7, ZC 15-03-022, existing zoning, NC1, Professional Office District, proposed zoning, HC1, Highway Commercial District. The parcel is 1 acre. The petitioner, Joseph Impastato. The owner, Salvatore Impastato. The parcel is located on the southwest corner of US Highway 190 and South Oaklawn Drive, Ward 7, District 7. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with commercial uses. Staff does not see any compelling reason to increase the intensity of the current zoning, considering that the site is surrounded by residential use, and at this time would like to recommend denial of the request.
Is the petitioner here? Would you care to speak? If you would state your name and address for the record and fill out a speaker card when you have the chance.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Joe Impastato. First of all, I'd like to say, I really tried repeatedly to get a meeting with the homeowners in the area to explain to them what we're going to do. Not really so they wouldn't oppose the project, but also so they'd be excited about, what we're bringing to the table and to the area. But the council member wasn't able to do it. So let me explain to you. We've owned the property for many years. We basically have a small family business. We distribute product. We do gift packages, gift sets, and we do a lot of mail order packaging. We're currently in Slidell. We want to move to the Lacombe area for a variety of reasons. One of the main reasons, because the second phase we want to do in 12 to 24 months is open up a storefront, which is one of the reasons for wanting to be in a community area as opposed to being in an industrial park. We're really excited about it. Sal and Judy's has been here for over 40 years. We know we've brought a lot to the table as far as to the community. We want to be a great neighbor. I'm also moving back to Lacombe. I'm really excited about it. And furthermore, I love my community. I'd never do anything to harm it. I'm very familiar with the area. I'm familiar with the real estate around it. If anything, what we're going to do is increase value and be a viable asset to the community in general. When you look at, I propose zoning on two separate parcels, mainly, again, trying to think of the people that live in the area to give them a choice. We own both of them. I'd prefer the one not on the corner, which is zoned residential. The other one is zoned, I guess, neighborhood commercial 1. But either would work for what we're trying to do. I also know and understand that a lot of people come up and they say, we want to do this development and we need this zoning, and then they change their mind and all of a sudden they want to sell their property for a profit. Well, I'll do whatever the neighborhood, you guys can think of in your minds to assure that that's not the case. My father's here tonight to also endorse it and back that up. This is a move for our family to bring our business closer to Lacombe, to operate there. We needed, when we spoke to Helen, and this is the zoning that they said that we would need, which was the HC1. If we can do NC5, that's fine. If there are deed restrictions that we can voluntarily place or do at our expense on the property to make the residences feel more comfortable, we're willing to do that. Again, whatever it takes for us to be a good neighbor is our objective, and we plan to be there for the next 30 years, serving our community and being a part of it. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Impastato. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium. We have a speaker card by Mr. Hutchinson. Okay.
No, Ricky Moore.
Okay. Please proceed, state your name and address, and we would ask you fill out a speaker card as well.
They have my card. They told me to put it on the table.
We do have it, thank you.
My name is Ricky Moore. I live at 59406 East Harbor Lane in Lacombe. I would like to present board members tonight with a petition signed by 187 area residents that are against any sort of rezoning in this area. There are no commercial entities in this particular section of Highway 190 or anywhere else in the area. There is a new brick home and one older brick home on Lacombe Harbor Road, which is adjacent to this property. There is a new brick home going up on Highway 190, which is in the next block. And basically everything in between these are family houses. This is a residential area. Local traffic often backs up on Lacombe Harbor Road, 4 to 6 vehicles deep. There are people trying to exit and get on the 190. There are also 4 different school buses that use this road twice a day. Please do not let the idea of a bakery distract from the truth. Changing zoning here is just not a fit for this area. St. Tammany did a comprehensive rezoning for a reason, and to rezone this would be bad for our neighborhood. There is a large commercial park on Highway 434 by the waste transfer station. Why not put it there? Please don't destroy Lacombe any farther or our neighborhood any farther. I would just like to say I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself and the 187 other petitioners for allowing me to get up here and address you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
No, Court Hutchison,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hutchinson.
Lacombe, an advisor for Concerned Citizens, St. Tammany.
Thank you.
This is the entrance to historic Oaklawn, which is the oldest subdivision in St. Tammany Parish. It's totally inappropriate at the entry of an historic subdivision to put a highway commercial property. There are plenty of properties available, as earlier mentioned, for warehousing and commercial space. I totally agree with the staff comments that this goes against the New Directions 2025, having worked on that program for 7 years. I feel that we should all stand by that. I'll leave time for other people to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak in opposition?
Carl Ernst, sir, and I have filled out a card, 59350 West Harbor Lane, Lacombe. My wife and I came to St. Tammany Parish after 33 years of the service and bought property and built a home in Lacombe Harbor. We did it for a reason. We like the area. We love that particular part of Lacombe. That road is the gateway to all the housing that goes, once you turn down Oak Lawn and it transitions into Lacombe Harbor, everything back there, once you make that turn, are residences, everything. Some older, some newer. Diverse population in both ethnically and financially. It's a wonderful area. The New Directions 2025, I think, laid it out fairly clearly that even I can understand as a grunt. That's an area that's been set aside for a particular reason. We hope that you all will stick with that as the staff has recommended. Lacombe is a community and we're unincorporated, so we rely entirely on the St. Tammany Parish government, the council, you ladies and gentlemen, to protect us and our property rights and take care of us. So we just ask you to do that in this case. Stick to the plan and everybody will benefit. At that intersection on the other side, on the south side of 190, another proposal was made about 2 years ago, and this body said no at that time for the right reasons. We hope you stick to your guns and protect us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium.
My name's Kenny Kehoe. I live at 59246 Cypress Bayou Lane in Lacombe. I was going to make the point that first of all, I wholeheartedly support what the staff recommended. I was also going to make the point that a similar motion was denied just recently, and I think you should rely on the wisdom that you showed earlier in denying a similar motion. And finally, I would say that if the petitioner did try to reach out to the homeowners in the area, I certainly was never made aware of it, and no homeowner that I spoke to in Lacombe Harbor or in the Oak Lawn District ever told me that they were made aware of anyone reaching out to them to try to make them understand what was going on. This completely blindsided us, and we are all totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition?
I will speak for my wife, Mark Spooner, 59308 Cypress Bayou Lane. I'm the newest property owner in the area, and I've spent 22 and a half years away from Louisiana. I came back. I wanted a quiet neighborhood. I wanted a place to retire, and this is what we chose, historic Oak Lawn in this area. And it's a beautiful area. It's gateway to the National Wildlife Refuge. I mean, it's not a commercial area. I mean, there's plenty of warehouses all up and down this area. I mean, we don't need it in our backyards, and they don't need it to the entrance of our neighborhood either. And, you know, if they would have been there, we would have never bought this property in 14 and, you know, currently building. And just, I mean, do the right thing for us, please. Like I said, I would have never come back. Moving back from Texas to Louisiana wouldn't have picked this area if it had been commercial up front and a warehouse. and I don't think anyone else will either. Since Katrina, there hasn't been a lot of building in that area, and we're bringing a lot of resources back into Lacombe and building a really nice place. We just don't, think it's right to commercialize it before we even get it finished. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition at this time? If not, Mr. Impastato, would you care to rebut?
Well, again, I can appreciate the concerns of the community. I'm sorry I didn't reach out to anybody personally, and I assure you, I still will meet, and I will discuss anything in detail as long and as much as you'd like to. However, make sure we're clear, we're not a warehouse. I mean, we are building a metal building with a facade, and we want to dress it up with all the course of landscaping, but we're a small family business. It's not like we're building a storage warehouse or, some of the other things that I've seen close by in the area. Also, we don't need to be on the corner. We have a parcel a couple of lots down that we'd be happy to do. As far as being out in the industrial area by the waste transfer station, I would never put my food business by a garbage transfer station. I'm sorry. It's not my interest. This is a great location for what we're doing. We want to service the community. And I will show you, I'll pass around a couple of pictures. This is 1/10 of a mile from the area. This is also 1/10 of a mile. I mean, they're close. The fire department is, et cetera, a metal building. We plan on doing something much more dressy than, oh, hell, I have a couple more things. And, when you look at the area as a whole, look in the back of those. You can look across from Briar Lake and you see a number of businesses. Briar Lake has certainly prospered. I just bought a lot there. I intend on building there. I know for a fact that none of those businesses have certainly lowered the value of that community. I know for a fact that my business is certainly not going to lower the value of this community. I've driven through Lacombe Harbor recently. I'm very familiar with the Oaklawn area, and I know they're suffering a lot of problems. I know they have a lot of homes for sale that they can't sell back there. I know they have a lot of issues, and they're concerned with the value of their property, but it's certainly not as a result of what we want to do. And I think when, they see the business develop and grow and turn into what it's going to be, everybody there would be happy. When I look through, I think I did speak to a lot of petitioners, and I think that's why, initially there was an email circulated that said, Joe Impastato is going to build a warehouse there, and it's crazy, and they're trying to rezone 2 parcels. And when I spoke to a lot of people, they were much more understanding, and I think that's why you have such a small turnout tonight in opposition. But again, at this point, I want to work with the community, and we want to be a part of it, and we'll certainly make concessions in order to build the kind of business that the community wants to see and that you guys think is acceptable, and the council soon to follow. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone in opposition care to make a final comment?
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
Ricky Moore again. There are no metal buildings on the south side of 190 anywhere in that area. There's a church, if you can consider that a business, and maybe today as much money as some of them make, they may be a business. But there is a church down past that quarter of a mile or so, or a couple of 100 yards. And then the next metal building would be way down a mile or so, and that's the fire department. Everything else, there's only a few. The one other business I believe is on and I know it's on the north side of 190. There's nothing. In fact, when you cross Bayou Lacombe and you come all the way to Lacombe Harbor Road on the south side, there is no business on the south side of that road. There is a business, a restaurant on the north side right there, and a service station, but it's nowhere near Lacombe Harbor Road. And I notice Mr. Matthews looks at his maps, and that if you look and see, you won't find a metal building or business in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. You have 3 minutes.
It won't take that long. Just a comment. As I understand the new directions 2025, it was not about what was and what is, it's about what will be. And if there are metal buildings there down the highway, in fact, if you go back down, there are a couple of mobile homes that grandfathered, but you can't replace them. You can't put any additional ones back there, and that was another case that was denied. So what we're interested in, those of us who invested in that area, is the future, not the present. And so I think that's what we're dealing with tonight, is saying yes or no, drawing a line in the sand or not, to whether we're going to arrive at that plan, and Lacombe is going to evolve into something better than what it is right now, and that's what we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the public?
Can I make one more?
Yes.
Just for a point, there is other businesses all around that area. Those are a couple of pictures. I mean, you can clearly see there are. It's not an inappropriate usage. And I do understand, you have 2025 put in a lot of work and they come out with a plan. But there's a reason you have a zoning commission. There's a reason you have a parish council and the opportunity to make changes. And again, I implore you, in a position of power and responsibility, you should encourage good businesses that want to come into the community, be a part of the community, and work with the residents. And that's exactly what we are and what we've proven to be for over 40 years. So please consider our zoning change and our request. And again, if there's any way you want us to manipulate it just to enable our business exclusively to be there, we're certainly willing to work with you and abide by that.
Please.
Just one moment. Just want to remind you that there are 187 signatures on the record tonight. Thank you. Against.
We have that. Thank you. Any other comments? I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Impostata? You've referred to your business as a small family business, and I understand it. What exactly are you talking about? What is this small family business you're planning to put there? And I ask that because I'm trying to decide whether should be an HC or an NC.
Okay. We import various products and we redistribute them, whether it's through mail order, through a number of grocery stores that we do business with, and gift baskets. And then, of course, the next phase, we want to open up a small community store for specialty foods and mainly items that we import and bring in.
Okay, you said you import various items. What type of items?
For us, olive oil, we have our own brands, maybe 25 to 30 different brands that we own. And we don't have a lot of product, but we do have, high-end, very expensive, high-quality products that we bring in and redistribute. The warehouse size we're looking for, the building itself is 3,000 square feet. There'll be an office in there. And in the future, the front will be, the store anywhere from 800 to 1,500 square feet maximum. We even went with this zoning because we don't need any bigger, or we requested this zoning because we don't need any bigger than 3,000 square feet, which is, pretty small compared to most businesses. But again, we're not AWG, we're very small. We bring in very high-end products and redistribute and resell them.
Basically food products and related?
Yes, sir, all food products.
Okay. And I noticed that you have an additional request coming before us tonight. How does that differ from this one?
Doesn't.
Okay.
I want one or the other.
So you're planning on putting two
No, sir.
businesses?
I just did that, and I spent the extra money on the zoning for if the community had concerns, to give them an option, so to speak. It doesn't matter to me whether I'm on the corner or the other one. And initially, our property was zoned C2 when we bought it, and it was downzoned, which is okay. I mean, but the other property I know is zoned residential. The corner piece is zoned NC1, but for me, I'd prefer the one closer. The lot's a little bit bigger, but either one would suit our needs.
Helen, could this type of business be in anything other than an NC?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Matthews,
Thank you for the promotion.
I'm sorry. If you look at the HC1, it's very clear: wholesale merchandise, including associated offices, indoor storage, a maximum of 3,000 square feet. That's exactly what he's proposing here. So it would fit on basically only under an HC1.
There's nothing in the NC. Mr. Chairman, you take Mr. Davis and let me look at it.
Very good. Mr. Davis.
Yes, I don't know if everybody remembers this, but the piece of property just adjacent to this one was NC1, and it took us quite a long time for us to go up to NC2 on that property. If you guys recall it, I don't know about the new commissioners on this, but we talked about this years ago and such like this. As far as being able to go from NC1 to highway commercial 1 is a pretty big jump, to be honest, Joe. It just is. And you say you can't do this in NC2 at all. If anything, I'd be more inclined to have the piece of property closer to the actual town of Lacombe to be highway commercial 1 than this property. That's all I'm going to say on it.
Are there any, Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, I'm looking at the NCs, and quite frankly, I don't see any of the NCs that are exactly the same type of business that he's talking about. Under HC1, the wholesale merchandise broker, agent, et cetera, that's pretty much the only thing that comes close to what he's proposing for his business. I'm concerned making that an HC1 piece of property, but that's a conundrum. Like I say, that's a big jump, but if you're going to do what you ask or propose to do, that's the only zoning that will fit.
Well, and we are willing to do deed restrictions. For instance, if it's, the concern is that a gas station's going to be there, and if that's approved in that zoning, I don't know, I haven't read through the entire list of zoning. We would do a restriction in the deed.
There's a whole bunch of very intense things.
And we'd have no
with
problem
HC1,
doing
yeah.
restrictions on those things. I mean, we are sincerely intending on putting our business there. It's not a farce to try to intensify the zoning and sell the property, and we'll work with you however you want.
Well, it would satisfy me if you limited it to just the, I'll close my book, the number 10 in HC1, which is, for the record,
But Mr. Impostati, it's...
a wholesale merchandise broker.
Okay, right. And what Mr. Matthews is stating there is you have an intended use. Obviously, HC1 has much broader uses, more
Absolutely.
expansive. But you would be willing to do a deed restriction specifically for whatever the appropriate use that
Yes.
you're looking for in HC1. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
That would be the wholesale merchandise broker, and the related language here, with a warehouse less than 3,000 square feet. That would satisfy me a great deal more than just a blanket HC1, although still HC1 is intense.
And again, in the discussion tonight, you've also said that you're indifferent, these two parcels or two cases in front of us, your intention is not to have them both zoned if that would the will of the commission, but in essence, one or the other.
One or the other.
Okay.
And we're preferable, if it was our choice, to have the one closer to the town of Lacombe, but it doesn't.
Which one is that? Is that the first one?
I wouldn't even know.
Which is the second case, which is ZC 1503.
And it sounds like the opposition
Okay.
would not want the corner piece, the gateway to historic Oak Lawn.
Right, we're just trying to get clarification
Okay, so
at this point.
Yeah, the 1503-023, which appears to be to the
So to the west?
west.
To the west. So that is actually closer to, Mr. Davis, that is closer to the town of Lacombe?
That's correct.
Okay, very good.
Is that the west?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along the lines of Mr. Davis, I'm having a hard time with this particular parcel, and I don't believe we should make a change in zoning on this parcel. However, I am inclined to now look at the other part. I know we have to look at it on its own merits, but based on the testimony we've heard, I have to recommend that we deny making a zoning change on this particular parcel, and so move.
Mr. Richard makes a motion to deny, second by Mr. Matthews. Mr. Lauren.
Yes, sir. Thank you, David. We have an obligation to try to encourage business. We also have an obligation to help protect the people that already have invested their life savings in their homes. And there's 180-something of them, 178, whatever the number is, that are definitely opposed to this particular one. And we haven't heard about the 23 coming up later. But, you know, to me, to put a business right in the entrance to an old historic subdivision is just not proper. And for that reason, I would be opposed to it.
Are there any more comments or discussion by the commission? We have a motion by Mr. Richard and a second by Mr. Matthews to deny. Just for clarification, a affirmative vote or a yay vote is a vote for denial. Please vote. The motion for denial passes. ZC 15-03-023, existing zoning, A2 Suburban District, proposed zoning, HC1 Highway Commercial District. The parcel, 1.2 acres. The petitioner, Joseph Impastato. The owner, Salvatore Impastato. The parcel is located on the south side of US Highway 190, west of South Oaklawn Drive, Ward 7, District 7. Staff.
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses. Staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval, and at this time would like to recommend denial.
Mr. Impastato.
I think almost all of it's been said. Mr. Lauren, to assure you, I can respect the fact that you feel compelled to protect people who've made their investment already. We've certainly invested a lot in our community and have a lot invested in it. And again, I can assure you, maybe you should take a ride out there and look at the area and get a little more familiar with it. I feel fairly certain that you wouldn't feel what we're proposing in any way is going to hurt anybody's investment. In fact, it should assist their investment and make them, enhance the community. That's the only other thing I have to add.
Thank you. And I assume everything prior to that on the previous case.
Everything prior to it. I won't waste. I know you guys work very hard. I won't waste any more of your time.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, please let me know.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this zoning request? Anyone to speak in opposition?
Again, Ricky Moore. I actually thought, when I talked to Helen in the beginning, I thought these two were going to be heard at the same time. And for all the same reasons, because I gave her two petitions, for all the same reasons, that is even more of a neighborhood area because there's homes next to it. I mean, there's homes all around that. I just can't understand how anybody would consider putting a business, any type of business, in the middle of homes. That section of Highway 190, and you can go take a ride there, that's all homes. And some really nice homes on the highway. I'm not talking about the ones when you turn the corner and go into Lacombe Harbor or back into Oaklawn. They just built a home back in Oaklawn that's got to be a $4 or $5 million home. I'm sure that man doesn't want to turn the corner or see a business out in front of the highway. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. That's I thought that piece of property was zoned to build homes on or whatever. I'm not real good with your zoning laws. I never had to deal with them before, but and I'm sure the people that will speak behind me was same thing. I could give you my same old spiel. But anyway, I don't know how to say it. Maybe he'd change his mind if I decided to put a used car lot across the street from that subdivision with air right down there, because there is a big vacant lot right there. But anyway, really would consider or appreciate the fact that y'all consider what he's trying to put there. It doesn't make any difference. It's a business, and they're all people that have their life savings invested in some of this stuff.
Thank you.
you.
Anyone else wish to speak in opposition?
Again, Kenny Kehoe, 59246 Lacombe, Cypress Bayou Lane. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm almost certain, and I'm just speaking from driving home and leaving home every day, that there are 2 residences between the 2 properties that we're discussing here. And they're only about 200 feet apart. To use an old worn-out phrase, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. For all the same reasons, we oppose this as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Court Hutchison, Lacombe. This piece is currently zoned A2, as commented on by staff. To jump from an A2 to an HC1 is just totally inappropriate. Anybody experienced in planning and what we went through with the new directions was that you incrementally increase zoning. You don't put industrial or warehousing next door to residential. And totally opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition?
I gave them my new card. The card, my name is Cindy Kehoe. I also live at 59246 Cypress Bayou Lane. I just want to let you know that I'm opposed to it as well. There are 2 houses on one side of that property, another house on the other side. I know when I signed the petition the other day, I was talking to Isabel Moore, who is Ricky's wife, and she told me that they had also been walking through the neighborhood talking to the people along that highway, and they were not aware of this was happening. So a lot of us were not aware about what was going to happen here. It was with the grace of God of all of our neighbors to let us know that these positions were being placed, and they were trying to change the property. We like to live Lacombe like it is. It's a great residential neighborhood. I moved here from Texas some years ago. I love my neighborhood. I love my neighbors, and I want to keep it residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Question for staff. Was the property posted?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
It is posted, but however, the neighbors that are next to it, some of them were not aware. They didn't realize, they didn't look into it until somebody told them. Yes, their signs are up. I would agree with that.
Thank you.
They just did not know.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Please.
Carl Ernst, Lacombe Harbor. I know you all getting tired of hearing us. You get worn out on this subject, and I apologize. I think your staff nailed it on both of these for the right reasons, and you've heard enough from us, but there are a lot of residents, as evidenced by the petition, and those who have come in addition that maybe didn't sign the petition. We just ask you to please do the right thing as your staff recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition? If not, Mr. Impastato, would you care to give a rebuttal?
Just briefly. The neighbor on one side is us, we own it. The neighbor on the other side is in favor. She asked if we wanted her to come tonight. We said no. If 187 signatures impresses you, I promise you I could bring many, many more and fill the room up with very little problem. You know, we didn't think we need to do that because we really have a compelling desire to work with the community and try to get something worked out. But you know, I don't know even what else we could do. There's nobody directly affected by it that is concerned. They're in favor of the project. I know there'll be many more, or at least a couple more hearings, and we'll certainly bring them. And if it's a factor, you know, I'll go around and get a petition and get it signed. I don't know that I've even seen one here tonight, and I certainly don't see a lot of opposition, but, you know, I can go and do that. Again, thank you for your time, and we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Opposition rebuttal.
I'd like to see him get those signatures out of the area. I could have went around anywhere else in the parish and got a lot more signatures, but I didn't do that. My wife and I went house to house. The other thing is that the property owners next to that live in the houses and the ones in the back that own land that adjoin this and have homes there were not aware or were notified that this was coming up. It was posted.
Excuse me, are they here this evening?
No.
Okay, thank you.
It was posted, but it's only been posted a very short time. It wasn't posted, I'm gonna say, on a timely basis.
Staff, would you care to comment on what our procedure is for posting?
We post a minimum of 10 days before the meeting, and it was posted on the 19th, no, excuse me, on the 9th of February.
Thank you.
Can I ask?
One more question, sir.
Who posted that property? Who put the posted signs up? What kind of vehicle do you drive?
Parish vehicle, we take a picture of every sign after.
Okay. When those signs were put up, and I pass up more probably than anybody else because I'm retired and don't have a lot to do, they were put up by somebody in a four-door white pickup truck. Wasn't a parish truck. I seen them put the signs down. Is it an old raggedy Ford truck? Old Ford truck?
Sir, excuse me, sir. Sir, excuse me.
No, I mean,
Order.
No, I watched them put the signs.
Order, sir. I take this very seriously. We know what staff does. The fact of you cross-examining staff is not appropriate.
No,
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. We've given more latitude on rebuttals than we normally do in this particular case. And I respect the fact. We got the facts from staff that it was posted. It was posted timely. But I take offense for questioning our staff on doing their job. So thank you so much for your comments.
I wasn't questioning your staff. I guess I was making the remark that somebody could have very easily picked those signs up and waited for a few days to put them back down. Sir, I'm 71 years old.
I
go to
appreciate your
church.
comments, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from the public? Hearing none, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Davis.
Yeah, after the rezoning, especially in the Lacombe area, we try to be very sensitive about all this. If you look west of Bayou Lacombe, that's where most of the Highway Commercial 1, Highway Commercial 2 is, obviously going all the way down to Lishman's and such like that. On the other side, the opposite side where this is located at too, at the time, and also in agreement with Mr. Groby, obviously there's going to be some growth there. There's no question about that when it comes and such. This first parcel that was on Oak Lawn Drive, I just absolutely, see that not happening, ever, personally. This other parcel, which is about 3 parcels away, heading west towards Lacombe, and then hitting Anchorage Drive, and then, of course, after that, hitting the big new turnaround we have. Especially if Mr. Impastato is going to put a deed restriction on this for this one case, I generally don't have a problem with it.
Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Impastato, would you please come up? I've got one fairly quick question just to verify something you said. You indicated that one of the pieces of property that is directly adjacent to this is your property?
Yes, sir.
Is that on the east or west side, do you know?
West side,
The west side. So do you have a house on that?
threeplex.
Say again?
A threeplex
A
apartment.
threeplex, okay. So it's not, well, hell, that's not even A2. It's not somebody's home there. It's a threeplex that you own, so we know one of the homeowners adjacent to it is certainly not against this.
Yeah, and the other is Miss Nettles, I think is her name. Super nice lady, very happy about it, no problem. We know her for many years, and she don't have any problem with what we're doing.
And you agree before this would come to the council to put a deed restriction limiting it to the one type of business?
To specifically what I'm doing, yes, sir.
Okay, just specifically, I believe it's number 10, correct me if I'm wrong, Helen, on that, would be exactly what you would put a deed restriction that would prevent any of the other types of businesses in HC1, and you agree to do that if we pass tonight your request to do that between now and the time the council comes
Yes, sir.
comes before the council?
I can still have a little store with that
Yes,
restriction?
yes.
Yes, sir, I'll have that done.
I move to approve HC1 with the testimony of Mr. Impostata that he would put a deed restriction on it.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion by-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you may want to look at the ordinance because food store is listed under HC1. However, it's separate from the warehouse.
Isn't that what number 10 was? That allowed?
The warehouse is for the wholesale. However,
Okay.
if you go to number 13, it
Mr.
said food
Impostata?
stores.
Would you, Mr. Impostata, would you come back up? I may have kind of misunderstood exactly what you're saying. What you're talking about now currently is a wholesale type business, but you're also thinking about selling retail there.
In 12 to 24 months.
Okay. So, Helen, number 13, which says food store, that would cover that.
Well, a food
The retail
store,
business.
it clearly states that
Yeah.
under HC1 it allows for a food
Yeah.
store.
Okay, so you would put number 10, the wholesale merchandise broker and food store, and preclude all of the other types of businesses under HC1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Alan.
Mr. Lauren.
Thank you again, Dave. Looking at the map that was in our packet, on the north, east, south, and west side of the property we're talking about is all zoned A2, residential. If we were talking about putting HC1 in the middle of Beauchene, people would think we were smoking something. Okay? This to me just seems inappropriate to spot zone and a commercial property in the middle, completely surrounded by residential.
Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually understand what the motion and the second is. I do have a question regarding that deed restriction. Typically, a deed restriction benefits, inures to the benefit of someone, a homeowners association,
You're right.
or not the parish. So in this case, who would benefit from it? Who would it protect?
It would have to be in the benefit of the adjacent homeowners, all the way around, all three sides.
Okay, thank you.
And what is currently on Mr. Impostata's property, I think is A7. It's a multifamily. So even though it's zoned A2, he has next door illegally non-conforming already. And it is on Highway 190. It's not in the middle of Beauchene.
And in that regard, while I still have the floor, I agree. I have a big problem, obviously, spot zoning, but we have to remember we're on a state highway and things have changed. We need to protect the communities that are there, and I think we did that in the last denial. But actually, with this amendment, I'm in support of the motion.
Are there any further discussion? So we have a motion by Mr. Matthews and a second by Mr. Davis to approve with deed restrictions as testified by Mr. Impastato, that those deed restrictions would be specific to HC 1, 10, and 12, and that they would, 13, 10 and 13, and that they would be written as for the benefit of the homeowners adjoining, the adjacent homeowners. Adjacent property owners. Thank you, Mr. Richard. Please vote. Motion carries. Any appeals can be made. Appeal cards are to the right, to the council. ZC 14-10-093, existing zoning, HC3 Highway Commercial District, proposed zoning, A8, multifamily residential district. Parcel, 11 acres. Petitioner, Parish Council by motion, August 7th, 2014. The parcel is located on the west side of US Highway 11, north of Pine Place, south of Hunter Street, Ward 8, District 14. Staff?
Sorry. The 2025 future land use plan calls for the site to be developed with residential uses. The site is currently developed with multifamily dwellings and undeveloped land. The requested zoning change to A8 would allow for future multifamily development at the maximum density of 1 unit per 1,500 square feet of property. Staff feels that there's no compelling reason to recommend approval, considering that the site was rezoned from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to HC3 Highway Commercial District through the comprehensive rezoning. Moreover, the site is currently abutting HC3 zoning on the north and south sides. Note that the HC3 zoning district allows for multifamily dwellings. Staff recommends the request for A8 multifamily residential district designation be denied.
Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this? Is the owner present? Would anyone wish to speak in opposition? Yes. Ms. Slifer.
Sandra Slifer, League of Women Voters of Louisiana, that I know absolutely nothing about this case, but the fact that there is no one here to speak in favor of it, and it is an A8 zoning request, at the very least, it should be, postponed until someone can come and, explain why it, should be rezoned, to this intense zoning. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else care to make a comment? Seeing none, I close it to the public, bring it back to the commission. Mr. Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How long do we postpone subsequent to this commission being diligent as well as the staff being diligent? How long do we continue to postpone before someone comes to represent that property? This has been on record since August, just like the one earlier. I didn't say anything, but letters have gone out, am I right? Property owners have responded, maybe not 99.9% of them, and we're still postponing because no one is here to represent. How long
Mr.
do we-
Randolph, your point is very well taken.
Thank you.
Mr. Matthews, I think, is the author of that point, and respectfully so. And that's one of the dilemmas we have when we get motions from the council, is continually stated here. What it affords the commission from a procedural is there is no set amount of time. We do not have a policy on that. However, I think the commissioners individually are strong and obviously are here to voice their opinions based on their talents, that they can either vote to deny at which time it would go to the council, and the council could decide. The other option is to indefinitely postpone it. Under Robert's rules, if such is done, it's tabled until this commission puts it back. And I think it's very clear that the commission wants the landowners, the property owners, as Sandra stated, to come forth, as many commissioners have. We are here representing them and the public. It needs to be transparent. We ask them to come forward. And so it's up to the commission to do whatever the commission deems is appropriate, whether they choose to approve it, deny it, postpone it. But an approval or denial will go to the council. A postponement keeps it here. But we appreciate your comments. Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I don't believe there's a reason to postpone this, especially with the fact that the current site is HC3, which allows multiple family dwellings anyway. So with that, I'll make a motion to deny.
Motion by Mr. Davis to deny. Mr. Matthews.
While I agree with Mr. Davis's philosophy on the fact that HC3 allows multiple family, our chairman quite succinctly and eloquently, I think, stated our real purpose and, if you will, upset, aggravation, whatever, with the fact that we get these things, no one bothers to come, and if we deny it, it goes before the council, which is where it came from. What we're doing is sending it to the council, which will probably approve it. The people that have this property get kind of a free ride, don't come address us, don't give us any reason to do anything, and I really think we ought to continue to postpone it until such time as we get someone that comes forward from the ownership and tells us what they're trying to do, since in fact the current zoning allows multiple family dwellings. I'm not in favor of denying this at this time. I think we ought to postpone it.
Mr. Matthews, is that a motion? Well, we have
I'll make a motion to postpone. Sorry.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews to postpone. Do we have a second for either motion? Mr. Dougherty.
I believe we have in our rules that the commission can only postpone a case 2 times, and then we have to take action on it.
We don't.
Bill, I think not only in the new, but I know that there's been discussion that we cannot continually postpone these things. We have to take action on it. Now, if the petitioner asks for postponement,
That's, I've looked it up. In the on the planning rules, that's true. On the zoning rules, it doesn't say anything about it. We have been operating because we have been told, before we knew we had rules, that was the case. You could only do it twice. Emil used to tell us that all the time. I think Emil was talking about things that he thought were true and maybe were not. So I think we can postpone this
this particular case
as much
does
as we
not
need.
have a notation that it was postponed, and I quickly ran through the minutes and didn't see that it was postponed last month. Now, was this on the agenda last month?
I don't
No,
believe-
it's been postponed for a few months because we had to send the
Contact them.
notices to the property owners and wait for it to come back.
Yeah, well, in any event, it was administratively postponed for a procedural problem.
Okay.
Okay?
and
So
Mr.
this is the first time we would be postponing it for not a procedural problem.
And Mr. Dougherty, we've, as you know, and you were intimately involved in the lengthy process of reviewing the ordinance, which is our policies and procedures. We do know this came up in the past, but as Mr. Matthews had stated, we believe it was more of an operating understanding than an actual rule. And council is looking through, but I believe has not identified that we actually do have a policy of such. Mr. Randolph?
My point may be a little moot, but I think procedurally, we have exercised ourselves as well as implemented policy and procedures, whether prior to the letters, even subsequent to the letters going out. If we continue to postpone, I personally, I don't have a problem with sending it back to the council, because we're continuing to postpone items on the agenda when property owners are not responding, and because they don't respond, we're going to continue to postpone and postpone, and it just infiltrates our time as well as our agenda and really our effectiveness in exercising business. That's just my opinion, and I just believe that denying would send it right back. Hey, we did what we were supposed to do as commissioners. We were transparent, gave the public all the opportunity in the world. Staff did their due diligence with sending out the letters. No one's here. Send it back. But the postponement overrides the denial. Thank you.
And I would chime in the fact that if what our purpose is to make sure we're as transparent as can be with the public, by expecting a landowner to come forth to get their position, this commission has that ability. By postponing, we can continue that process until the landowner comes forward and states why they would like to do something. And as you stated, if we deny or approve, it's a recommendation that goes back to the council. The council can do whatever they choose to do without ever identifying who the landowner was. And so I think as a commission, and I understand your point and I value your point, as a commission, it's part of our responsibility to have that landowner come forward in the public and say, why do they want to do something? That's my opinion. Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Will this be the last time we could postpone this
No.
case?
We
How many
have-
times can we postpone this?
Indefinitely.
No, but if we make a motion to postpone indefinitely, doesn't that
Well,
get lost in limbo?
Listen, yes, that would, what I meant, and let me clarify myself, we can postpone it month after month after month after month. There is no policy which states we can only postpone twice and we have to take action. The message we're sending very clearly is we want the owner to come forward and tell us why they want to change.
No, I agree with that. It's just that how long can we afford to wait with this?
As long as the commission's willing to do it.
Okay.
Mr. Richard.
Mr. Chair, I think we have a motion to postpone. I second that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews and a second by Mr. Richard to postpone. Please vote. Motion to postpone carries. ZC 12-09-093, existing zoning, a major amendment to a PUD, Planned Unit Development Overlay. Parcel 15.87 acres, the petitioner, Covington Place Cottages LLC, the owner, Lee Laporte. The parcel is located on the north side of 10th Street, east of Ruby Street, Ward 3, District 2. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting a major amendment to the PUD, which consists of a conversion of a 2.51 acre site, as you can see on the attached plan, approved for commercial uses to be developed with 57 multifamily residential units. The height of the building will not exceed 30 feet, which is compatible with the abutting single-family residences, and the landscape buffers of a minimum of 15 feet will be provided along the front, sides, and rear of the proposed multifamily residence. Also, I'd like to point out that, as originally proposed, a total of 2.92 acres of green space is proposed to be provided, including a detention pond and playground area. And additionally, passive and active amenities are proposed to be provided, as of Lot 7 is now going to be developed with a gazebo and a pool. Staff recommends that a requested major amendment to the PUD be approved, as it will provide a greater variety of housing and additional recreational amenities within the PUD.
Mr. Laporte?
Good evening, Lee Laporte, on behalf of Covington Blaze Cottages LLC. As staff told you, we're trying to make a major amendment to this PUD. We're actually downzoning. The piece was commercial previously, and we want to downzone to multifamily. The reason for it is to build luxury townhomes on that piece of property. We have met with the neighbors twice, once prior to making the application, and we addressed some concerns that they had. We met again after we made application, once we had the PUD and had the drawings that we could show them. I also reached out to Mr. Sharp, who's the councilman. Mr. Sharp came to the second meeting, and at the end of the second meeting, I think we had addressed everybody's concerns, and we had made some compromises. Here I have a list of homeowners and adjoining property owners in approval of the PUD amendment. I don't know if y'all want to see these.
Thank you. If you give that to staff.
We also met with the church, who's at the end of the street. They are as well in favor, and they've also signed the petition as well as Mr. Sharp. So we would ask for your approval, and thank you for your time. Hopefully this will be a little smoother.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Willie.
As Mr. Laporte mentioned, it's a major amendment to the PUD, but it's also an improvement to the PUD. I move for approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Willie to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Laporte? I'm not against this at all, but I do have some questions. Are we looking at the entire 15.87 acres or just what is in yellow on our map?
You have this map?
Yeah.
You're looking at what's in purple.
All right,
so
what
it's-
we're looking at is only what's in purple?
Only what's in purple, it's 2.51 acres.
There's 2.5 acres?
2.51 acres in this purple piece.
Okay.
And the lot 7, which you can see is a recreational area, everything else stays the same.
Okay. That helps me a lot. Where is the retention zone here? Pond, rather, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can see the very edge of it right there at Ruby Street, and then it goes on back. This is not a full map.
That's the little dotted line?
Yes,
Is that what
sir.
that is? Okay.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, in this purple area, you're going to have 57 lots?
No, sir, it'll be one lot, and it'll be 57 townhomes.
Okay. Is there going to be a street through here or anything, or what?
No, they will exit onto 10th Street. There'll be buildings that'll face each other with a common parking and exit out to 10th Street.
Okay. There'll be driveways in between all of the homes?
There'll be driveways between buildings.
Buildings, I'm sorry, okay.
Yes, sir.
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Willie and a second by Mr. Davis to approve. Please vote. Motion carries. Plan review cases. Applications requiring review and approval of site plans along a planned corridor district by the Zoning Commission are as follows. PR 15-03-002, use tire shop. Corridor, Highway 21 planned corridor. Zoning, HC2 highway commercial. The use size, 6,613 square feet. The petitioner, Michael P. Powell. The owner, Iberia Bank. The parcel is located on the west side of Louisiana 21, south of Greenbrier Boulevard, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
As previously stated, the petitioner is proposing a new tire store on his property on Highway 21. A site landscape plan has been submitted as required. As stated below, some landscape variants are being requested. If you look at the property itself, it narrows down towards the back, and also there's also in a driveway that goes, through the property to give access to a facility in the back. So it kind of narrows the area where the building can be placed, and for that reason, they're requesting some landscape variance. However, they made a strong effort to come as close as possible to meet most of the requirements and to keep as many trees as possible. And staff would like to recommend approval subject to all applicable regulation and the conditions listed on the form, on the staff report.
Thank you. Is Mr. Powell here?
I'm here representing.
Please, approach the podium.
I did fill out a card. I wasn't sure if I was going to have to, but my name is David Fremmer, and I'm with Embry Asset Development Group, and we're out of Georgetown, Texas, about 30 miles north of Austin, Texas. Like to describe this project a little bit. I had the pleasure of meeting with the AOA on February 19th to discuss this project, and they did give me a lot of constructive input on this. I think what the main takeaways on this, well, maybe to go over it from the start, we did talk about this, the proverbial 10 pounds of you-know-what in the 5-pound bag. And because of the easement going through the property, which goes back to the water tower in the back, we've had to work with them because they actually built their force main outside of their easement. So we've had to do a lot of legal work with them to try and rectify that without having them move that force main at the same time. We had another conversation just before I came here about that. And one of the things that that I walked away from the AOA meeting was the fact that the Flower Bayou there is a very sensitive area, and protecting that from sediment was of utmost importance to everybody involved in the project. So what we've done is we've gone back to our local designers and asked them to come up with some recommendations for the type of grass that's going to be in the drainage servitude, the type of mulch that would go around there. Unfortunately, they have failed, they've been unable to come up with, I think, what are recommendations that are suitable to us and also the AOA. We want to do the right thing. At this point, it's not costing us any more money to put one type of grass versus the other, one type of mulch versus the other. We want to do the right thing. So we are also checking with Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries to see if they have any controlling interest in this particular part of the drainage servitude. It could be questionable, but we're going to run that gamut anyway. I'm almost hoping that they do, because maybe they can give us some more recommendations on what type of grass they want in there to help on that erosion control. Either way, we do have a SWIP that we have a SWIP designed. We will be putting all the best management practices in place for that. Our sister company, Embry Construction, will be constructing this, so we'll have a lot of control over them during the time of construction. Right now, there's a lot of talk going back and forth about the utility company wants to come in and move their road. We really want to do that for them because we want to take control of the whole project from start to finish. We don't want to phase this. We don't want to take the chance of someone coming in and doing work that's not acceptable to everybody. So I think to maybe talk about the white elephant in the room is that erosion. I totally agree with staff and the approval. The one thing, so that we can protect the homeowners association, I'd like to request actually request to add something to that approval, which would be to get an agreeable landscape plan that addresses the erosion after the plants are put in. Our concern now is that if you were to put mulch around the plants, well, that'll wash away eventually. I mean, I don't want to guide them. My recommendation would be to put stone around there, but I'm not a landscape architect. I don't want to guide these guys. I want to get, some real professional people, and we might even go to the level of when we get our, this is out for bid now, just to get the pricing, and we can get local people to give us input on what they do. Because as you know, the people that actually do the work sometimes know it better than what the designers do. So I just would like to add that as a condition of approval by the parish.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the project? Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra Slifer, this time wearing the AOA, or Association of Associations hat, that a lot of the things that we worked with Firestone on initially were already in the plan for the Goodyear Tire store. So we were pleased that that it was going to be sited in a vertical way, that the equipment used was going to be quiet. We do have, we do think that having that oversight regarding the plantings, particularly those that are adjacent to Flowers Bayou, and we'll still call it Flowers Bayou, even though it looks like a drainage ditch on the west side of the highway, that on the east side of the highway, for those of us particularly who live along the bayou, we know that it's still a scenic stream. And so we are very sensitive to the amount of sediment that has migrated due to the construction on the west side, primarily, of the highway. So we would like to make that a condition of the of any approval that you may grant. We recognize that the parish does have some talented people on staff who are very familiar with landscaping and erosion control, and we'd like to implore upon them to provide additional guidance and oversight. We would like to be kept in the loop, regarding what the final landscaping plan looks like. Again, this is, there were really no other objections to the plan, provided, that we can work this out. And, given the statements by the requester, we are confident that we can work this out, but we do want to make sure that the homeowners are protected regarding this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Don Allett. I live at 38 Begonia Drive, Covington. I'm here representing Flower State Civic Association. I'm also a former hydraulic engineer with the Corps of Engineers before I retired 3 years ago. Flower State Civic Association supports this project. Everything looks good. We have the same concerns, however, with the erosion control. We note that Flowers Bayou flow velocities are very high during floods caused by high rainfalls upstream of this area, and the erosion that has been washed off from areas nearby from other developments has caused Flowers Bayou to silt in by quite a few feet over the years for quite a long distance downstream, which has made it too shallow for boat traffic throughout much of its length. So we concur with the AOA. As Sandra said, we concur with their position regarding
this being conditioned on approval of a final landscaping plan for bank stabilization to prevent erosion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the public, anyone else care to speak? Seeing no one, I close it to the public. I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Davis.
Yes, Sandy was concerned with all the landscaping and such like that. I believe the young lady next to Helen can be appropriate for you to respond on that. I like the Goodyear facility here, especially next to the car wash. That way you can offer, offer them a deal. Work on the car and have it clean too. Anyway, sorry, it's a little marketing thing. Anyway, I have nothing to do with the car wash place, guys. Just let you know that. No. It seems like an awful lot of recommendations, but you don't have any problems with the small variances? Is that correct?
No, I don't. We've worked with them the best we could. You know, it's an odd-shaped property, and they've done a lot of work to try to make it work the best they could. So I think we're all in favor of the requested variances.
And as far as drainage goes, I mean, our drainage engineers have already calculated what it needs to be done and such, and how it's going to flow and all this erosion problems?
Yes, well, as you can see on the drawing, there's a detention pond in the back, and that's one issue, one thing that I brought up early on when I started talking to the developer to make sure that this is ironed out and that it would not have to come back to you for any other variances due to having to put a retention pond, because that's what happened in the past. So the retention pond is in the back, and they're proposing to put some cypresses around it to meet the required number of trees.
Trees, okay. I don't have a problem with this one.
As far as the concern regarding the species of trees that are within the southern buffer, that can be adjusted.
Mr. Dougherty?
This piece of property, are there any overhead utility lines running over it? All right, good, because a lot of times we get folks to plant trees under lines and give it 20, 30 years, and they get chopped down or chopped up. So, thank you.
Mr. Matthews.
This looks like a particularly well-thought-out plan. The AOA and the homeowners association asked for some type of an approval for the scenic bayou. I don't think we can do that. I think we can have Reagan take input from you all, but I think that any approval has to be limited to the staff. With that caveat, I'd move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews, a second by Mr. Davis. Mr. Lauren.
Yes, thank you again, Dave. The Highway 21 tire store has been under consideration for many years now. And this looks like an excellent plan, and particularly since you've got the support, and I thank you for doing that, of working with the community groups like the Flower Estates Group and the AOA. When you all get together like that, before you bring it before us, you make our job a lot easier. Okay? And we thank you for it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or discussion from the commission? We have a motion by Mr. Matthews and a second by Mr. Davis to approve. Please vote. Motion carries. We have no old business, new business. An ordinance to amend and reenact Chapter 18, Articles 3 and 4 of the St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances relative to the St. Tammany Parish Planning and Zoning Commission's rules that they are operating under. Staff, I assume you will defer to council?
This came before the Planning Commission and was unanimously approved. I think there may have been one amendment. which I think Bill's going to address. And other than that, this is just kind of housekeeping.
Mr. Matthews.
Are we going to ask for public comment first?
Yes, my comment to you is relative to
The amendment?
Mr. Hand's comment about an amendment.
Yeah, the only change that was made, and that was Mr. Lauren's suggestion, which was a good one, to change the amount of time that the parish council or parish president has to appoint to a vacancy from 100 days to 75 was done at the Planning Commission meeting, and I suggest we make that amendment also here for consistency.
Thank you. For the public's knowledge, for well over a year, a committee was put together, chaired by Mr. Dougherty, Mr. Matthews, myself, Mr. Hand, and Mr. Savant, to review this ordinance relative to how this commission and the Planning Commission operates. At the February 10th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting, with the motion that Mr. Matthews had noted, it unanimously passed. However, we deem that not only does it need to go in front of the Planning Commission, but as well as the Zoning Commission prior to going ultimately to the council for approval. So that's why we're bringing it up again tonight. With that, I would open it up to the public, and if there's any public comment, please come forth at this time.
Thank you. Caller Hernandez. I know most of you are here, the planning section, and I'm not going to repeat myself with planning. Actually, these are some new comments, and a couple of people actually, we talked about this afterwards, and if you would allow me several minutes, I'd like to read what I'm about to discuss, and it's under section 18.-036, General Rules for Public Participation. And I'm reading in where the majority of the changes were made there, and that's J. I will read what's existing now, 1 through 5. Members of the audience.
Carl, just 0.36 point what?
Point 10.
Okay.
General Rules of Public Participation. And it's J. Members of the audience of public hearings, at public hearings and meetings shall observe the following rules of conduct and decorum while the meeting is in progress. And now 1 through 5, which I hope you will allow me to read, just to set the framework here, are existing today. And then you added 6, 7, and 8. And then there's a sentence following it, which is existing, and then a new sentence following that, which hopefully you will allow me to read to set my remarks here. Number 1, this is existing, all existing 1 through 5. Refrain from talking to other members of the audience in a loud or otherwise disruptive manner. 2, refrain from initiating private conversations with commission members, staff, or legal counsel. 3, refrain from approaching the podium unless invited to do so by the chair. 4, refrain from engaging in any behavior which is not in keeping with proper and courteous conduct. 5, refrain from cheers, jeers, applause, or any expression of approval or disapproval of comments made by any speakers or any actions taken by the commission. Now, those are the existing ones. And then comes 6, 7, and 8. 6, new. Refrain from discussing matters not on the published agenda unless the proper procedures have been followed in adding the item to the agenda. Now, here, I guess I can understand what you're saying here, and, honestly, is that necessary? Well, if you think it's necessary, okay, I won't say too much more than that. 7, refrain from posting any signs in or around the Planning Commission offices or auditorium where the commission meeting are to take place. Now, that's a curious one to put in there, but I guess I have seen signs placed in and around the thing, and I'm wondering, is this the proper form, to place it in? I would tend to doubt it. I think it would go in a different section, but if that's what you want to put, okay, I won't deal with that too much more. The one I really have a problem with, though, is number 8. Refrain from carrying, wearing, or otherwise bringing in any objects, clothing, handheld signs, or placards into the building and auditorium while the planning meeting is to take place, where the planning meeting is to take place, in a manner disruptive to the meeting or as determined by the commission chair. So, it seems to me that if someone wants to wear a T-shirt that says no big boxes or no fracking or something, that to me is not disruptive. I'm sorry, that is not disruptive to me. If someone wants to hold a sign that says similar things, or it's any opposition to anything, again, I would not call that disruptive, and I would question whether, you know, one should be allowed, you know, to, and especially it says it's up to the chair. Hopefully the chair will be, you know, very receptive to getting the public input on that. And as long as they, and all the other things that, you know, not being disruptive and whatnot, those things are, you know, were already existing here. You know, that you, yes, and look at the previous language that I just spoke about, that, you know, it occurred. So it doesn't seem to me that you need to have, you know, number 8 on there. And I would recommend that you delete number 8 from there, because honestly, I think you're getting into things that I believe are, well, I would hope that you would reconsider number 8. Now, the next sentence is existing. The chair shall take whatever action is necessary to ensure that these rules are observed and the meeting procedures in any orderly fashion proceed in any orderly fashion. Then comes the new sentence, including warning the audience member to refrain from continuing the conduct, warning the audience member that they will be ejected if they continue the conduct, ejecting the audience member with or without the assistance of police personnel, and pursuing criminal penalties against the audience member for disrupting the peace consistent with LARS 14-103 or other applicable statutes. So I guess in here, you know, is that really necessary to put that kind of language in the thing that you're citing where it is? I think generally those people who you know, abide by the law, you know, don't need to be told that, you know, this is a particular section that you're going to be, you know, that you're going to be made to adhere. And again, I don't think that's, you know, that sentence is necessary to for that. I think generally good conduct, I would hope, generally happens. I've certainly, as you well know, have attended many meetings, and yes, I have seen some meetings where things did not quite go as we all had hoped. However, to me, again, that's a public right, it seems to me, to be able to hold signs, to be able to wear appropriate shirts or whatever it might be, that, you know, to express a certain sentiment. And again, I don't believe that that's something that we should put into the body of this, of the operations of this commission, both commissions. And for allowing me, and I thank you, because I did request that you bring this back before this this body again, and I appreciate that consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Sandra.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to agree with Carlo regarding people being not allowing people to wear T-shirts. That I spend an awful lot of time up at the state legislature, and even in the Capitol, all you have to do is walk around, and you'll see, oh, these are the plumbers. They're all wearing green shirts. Or this is domestic violence. They're wearing purple. Or you've got Citizens for One Greater Louisiana. What are they known for? For wearing their red jackets. They went up to Congress, and they marched in the halls of Congress wearing their red jackets. That this is what they were known for. That I've been telling people that I would much rather see them coming in here and wearing their T-shirts personally than carrying corrugated plastic signs. That, mind you, I think that perhaps some restriction on the type of sign that people have, but legal size, letter size signs, soft paper signs. I'm sorry. I think that people do have a First Amendment right of expression even in a public meeting, and that I think it's a very slippery slope when you start to restrict those rights in this fashion. And I would urge you to reconsider those restrictions and ask yourselves, what is it you are trying to stop the public from doing, and saying, through their peaceful protest, perhaps, or make awareness in a lot of cases. I have seen the people come from Brewster Road wearing those yellow shirts, to parish council meetings, to zoning commission meetings, and not once disrupt a meeting, other than the fact that they have had people in the audience every single month, for months and months and months on end, wearing those shirts. So I'm sorry, I just think that this is a bridge too far, and I would like to see somebody explain to me why they are recommending this. And, I just think it needs to be rolled back. And, that, democracy is messy. That a lot of this was done by, the changes that we have in place. It wasn't done because people were sitting back meekly and waiting for someone to give them their rights, or to, allow something, for change to happen. It's messy. Sometimes we have to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Seeing none, I close it to the public. I bring it back to the commission. Mr. Lauren.
Yes, thank you, David. Sandra and Carlos, let me explain two things. One, I address Sandra's question first. The provision says that in the opinion of the chair is disruptive. If someone comes in here with a pink shirt on, I don't think that's going to offend anybody. But somebody coming in here with a pink shirt that's got something obscene written on it, we have the right for the chair to ask that person to leave. The second one, it goes to the point that Carlos mentioned. We had one gentleman that stood up right over here when we were trying to conduct a zoning commission meeting, and he stood up, trying to, just for publicity's sake, he stood up and he was carrying one of those accordion type signs, "Stop fracking." Well, twice the chairman asked him, "Sir, we're trying to conduct a zoning commission meeting. We're not talking about fracking. This is not the proper forum. We would ask you to take your seat. You're disrupting the meeting." And he just remained standing. So he politely asked him the second time. And the gentleman turned around and said, "Sir, the only way you're going to get me out of here is with a policeman." And I didn't realize it, but there was a deputy sheriff standing right outside watching the monitor. And he walked in and escorted him out the building. So there is a need, when people become disruptive of the process, or they come in here with some sign or some obscene, in the opinion of the chair, that we have the right to ask them not to disrupt our meeting. That's the purpose of those two sections.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Yeah. As Mr. Manella said, Mr. Manella, myself, and Mr. Daugherty spent a lot of time working on all of this, and in particular these. There's nothing in here that says or even insinuates that we would do anything to someone who is abiding by the law, who is doing or wearing something appropriate, as Hernandez said. However, those people that come in here with signs or shirts that have, expletive big box stores or the like is not appropriate and is also not abiding by the law. They are disrupting our meeting. The gentleman that Mr. Lawrence spoke about stood up and had his sign not facing us, but facing the camera and blocking the camera. So when that back camera came on, all you saw was his sign. That was disruptive. That type of behavior, neither us nor the council is going to approve or allow. The people that come in here all wearing yellow shirts, I have no problem with that. It's interesting to see that the people have gone to the trouble to do that. It shows some passion, and it gives me an idea as to what those people are really trying to do. That's quite appropriate. And there's nothing in here or anything that any of us have talked about that would even begin to disallow that type of behavior. The behavior that people stand up, say things, do things, where inappropriate attire or signs we have problems with. And the last statement, I think it's important that we let people know what we can and will do to those people that come in here and try to disrupt our meetings. I don't think there's anything in here that begins to impinge upon First Amendment rights. I don't think there's anything in here that disallows the normal, orderly conduct that is expected of these meetings. And again, yes, some of it is messy, and to a great extent, particularly our chairman, has allowed a great deal of that messiness, as we saw tonight. The time limits were not eliminated, but the time limits were fudged a little bit because it needed to be. People made the same statements over and over on the two different cases. We allowed it. That's fine. And that was messy. But allowing people to do things that disrupt our meetings, take more time to our meetings, impinge upon the people that are speaking their rights is wrong. And I think we not only should, but must curb that type of behavior. And that's what this one little piece is about. There's a great deal more in this ordinance than that. But since you both spoke upon it, I think we needed to spend some time dwelling on it. But I don't see any problem with it, and I think we ought to approve it.
Are there any other comments?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews, second by Mr. Dougherty,
Dave, with the amendment.
as amended, which is the 75 days reappointment. And I too would like to point a personal privilege to comment. First of all, we thank you for your public comments, particularly more so from where they're coming from, because you're both great, staunch public advocates. You're here, and I can assure you everything you say is taken very seriously by this commission, and I'm sure by the council and the parish as a whole. As Mr. Matthews stated and Mr. Lauren, these are provisions just to notify the public that in the event of an extreme, that we have the right to bring the meeting back for its public purpose, and that's to listen to cases, whether they be planning or whether they be zoning. And I would hope that you would have enough faith in us and what we have demonstrated to know when to do that. I'm privileged to be chair right now, but any one of us will occupy the seat. And it's one of keeping decorum and keep us focused on what we're doing. As evidenced tonight in other meetings, we give a lot of latitude because we want the public's input. We expect that. That's where the passion comes forward. However, by the same token, these are public meetings, these are televised meetings, and we expect to focus on the business in front of us. We know fracking is a big issue, and there'll be other big issues. But please allow the public to observe what we're doing and not to interfere with that. If it's regarding the case, by all means, we want to listen to it. If it's regarding zoning or planning, that's our purpose. But if it's beyond the scope of that and it becomes disruptive to the public, we will take the proper means to ensure that we bring control and our purpose back into full vision. So again, thank you for your comments. We currently have a motion by Mr. Matthews and a second by Mr. Dougherty to approve as amended. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Is there anything else that needs to be brought forth to this commission? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn by Mr. Lauren, Second by Mr. Matthews. Thank you.